Hey guys, welcome back. This week bringing you round 11 of the Monster Energy Supercross Series. This week we are at Indianapolis, Indiana at the Lucas Oil Stadium. But before we get really into that, let's talk about the breakdown of round 10 at Daytona. So Daytona is always an interesting race to watch. It's a pretty unique track and a pretty one-off track compared to the other 16 rounds in the season. So it makes it fun for the riders, and it also makes it fun for the fans to watch as well. So I thought that this past weekend was a very good weekend. It was really cool to see all the riders go at it and see what Daytona kind of had in store for those riders and how the riders handled it. Now, the one thing that I wanted to mention was the track conditions. Track conditions, I definitely noticed, gave some problems to some riders. Now, the track got very ruddy and very whooped out and chewed up. And, coming out of Daytona, that's not necessarily something that's uncommon to see. But what was surprising to me to see was coming off of the gate, that first 180-degree turn from that dirt to sand transition, that really gave some riders some problems. Now, in the heat race, you had Sexton going down, getting the whole shot. And so when he fell down, he tangled up a ton of guys. And same with Cooper Webb. Cooper Webb, I don't think got the whole shot, but I know he was pretty far out in front. And he fell in the first 180-degree turn and tangled up some guys. You fast forward to the main event, Ken Roczen did the same exact thing, went into that 180-degree turn. Thanks to the help of Chad Reed to some degree, he got knocked over, and that tangled up Cole Seeley and Dean Wilson as well. So just a really interesting start, really gave some riders some problems, and it was really interesting to watch how some riders dealt with that first turn and who got tangled up and who escaped free from that first 180-degree berm. And so it was really interesting to me just to see how that played a big factor in the overall results in the main event and also the heat races as well. But before we start talking more about Ken Roczen and the 450 class and everything that happened there, we're going to move on to the 250 class. So Austin Forkner had a fantastic run. Coming off of third at the East and West Showdown in Atlanta, he really proved again to the East Coast riders that he is the guy to beat. He got first place at Daytona, a really solid run, just smoked those guys, and so it was really cool to see him back where he belongs, again proving that he is the guy to beat for this East Coast Championship. And I really feel like he is going to do well for the rest of the season, and if he can just stay as consistent as he's been since the start of the season, he has definitely got his championship in the bag. At this point, it's his championship to lose in my mind, so as long as he can stay consistent and get on the podium every single week, nonetheless win every single week, I feel like he will definitely walk away with that championship. But since we're on the Austin Forkner subject, so last week I talked about how the West Coast riders, I posed a question that the West Coast riders were maybe better than the East Coast riders. Now, I got some feedback from that. One of the feedback answers was from Carol Johnson. Now, Carol said this. She said, "I'm not too sure I agree with you on the Forkner deal. He got beat, but in the post-race conference, he was being himself. I think he can run with both the West Coast riders, and he has been more consistent and mistake-free than the other two." Now, to clarify what I said in last week's and kind of going off of what Carol said too, so I'm saying overall that the West Coast guys are better than the East Coast. Now, Carol is now saying that, Austin could run with the West Coast guys. Agree, 100%. I think if you took Austin and you put him in with the West Coast riders and you let him, eat with those guys, I think you would see a podium every single week from him, probably even wins. I think that he is definitely right there with the West Coast guys. Like Carol was saying, he is very, very consistent, unlike AC and also Dylan Ferrandis, who got first and second in Atlanta. So I feel like Forkner can run with those guys. Absolutely. No question about it. He can run with those West Coast guys and do very, very well. And his consistency would be awesome in the West Coast Series because you don't find that in the West Coast Series this past year. So I think that Austin definitely has the ability and capability of riding with the West Coast guys and really showing them that he can run with them. But as a whole, I feel like the East Coast riders aren't maybe as strong as the West Coast riders. But thank you, Carol, for posting that and really, getting some conversation going. But I definitely agree with everything that you said. He's definitely very consistent, and I think that he is definitely going to, he definitely has the ability to ride with the West Coast guys and do well. Now, come Las Vegas time when they meet again, I would not be surprised if you see Forkner win and kind of put what happened in Atlanta to shame. So definitely something to watch and see if AC and Dylan Ferrandis don't have a solid night as they did in Atlanta at Las Vegas. I feel like definitely Forkner is going to be the winner of that race. So obviously I think Forkner can run with those guys and really do a good job staying consistent and really staying on the podium on the West Coast if he were to ever transfer into there. But as a whole, I feel like the East Coast riders may be a little bit on the weaker side compared to the West Coast guys. I think the West Coast guys definitely are the better of the 250 riders. So thank you again, Carol, for posting that and giving me some stuff to talk about. So I really appreciate that. So moving on from Forkner and getting back to Daytona, we got in second place Sexton. So Chase Sexton got second in Daytona, and that was a really solid performance from him. He is just a guy that you look for every single week to get on the podium, and he definitely proved that at Daytona and really backed that up. So I feel like he had a solid performance there, and again, he's always a guy that you look forward to stay on that podium. Now we'll see if he can back it up going into Indianapolis and see what happens there. But yeah, definitely Sexton is a threat for the podium every single week. Now, I would say he's a threat for the red plate and the championship, but the way that Forkner's been running, I just don't see that. So, yeah, that's just kind of what I feel like for that. But anyways, moving on there, third place, it was Justin Cooper. Again, great night for him. Now he's second in points behind Austin Forkner. So, really him staying consistent throughout the season really has proven him well, and he has been super solid. So Daytona was definitely another one of those finishes that really helped him in the points. So solid night for him getting third. And yeah, so those are your top three coming out of Daytona. So now moving on to the 450 class, that was a really solid battle for the win. Eli Tomac coming out with the victory, and that's no surprise to me. That track always really fits him very well. If you go back to last week, I predicted that he would get second, only because his gate starts have been very inconsistent this year, so I wasn't too sure how he would get off the gate, but he proved me wrong, got off the gate very well, and at that point, once I knew that he got off the gate well and got past that 180-degree berm where it was giving everyone a lot of problems, I knew that was his race to lose. Blake Baggett put up a fantastic fight all night long, really was hanging with him tough. Really cool to see Blake sending off that wall jump before Eli and everything like that. So it was really cool to see a good battle early in the race for the lead between Blake Baggett and Eli Tomac, but ultimately Eli Tomac walking away with the victory. Like I was saying, it was his kind of track, so it was just really fit him well, and I knew that he was going to be pretty comfortable in those types of conditions. He was also definitely really cool to see him pass Baggett going over that wall jump. Like I was saying, Blake did it first compared to Eli. So I think once Eli saw that Blake was doing it, I think he was just kind of waiting for the right time to kind of send it off the wall jump like Blake did, and he did at the perfect time, passing Blake at the wall jump and really sky-shotting himself into there. It was really cool. Always like to see that, in the past years there's been wall jumps there as well, and it's really cool to see those guys send it off of that and just watch just how crazy high they go and everything like that. So it was really cool to see Eli pass Blake like that going off of the wall jump. Now, after Eli took the victory, this now puts him second in points. So that definitely shook some things up. So going into Daytona, it was Webb in first and then Roczen in second, with Tomac and Musquin in third and fourth. Now everything kind of got shooken up, and Webb is still in first and Eli is in second. So with that being said, Eli is now 19 points down from Webb. Now, I'm going to pose a question here, and this has been something that I haven't seen out of Eli all year, and if you've watched my past videos, I've kind of talking about it before too. But can Eli stay consistent enough to get that red plate and go to Las Vegas and win the championship. Now, he hasn't been consistent at all this past year or this year so far, and he's had either really good nights or really bad nights, nothing in between. So we'll see. If he can stay consistent, I think that he can put on a charge for Cooper and take that 19-point deficit and really shrink it down, hopefully get that red plate and win the championship. But it's hard to bet against Cooper at this point, again, with him coming off of his 5 wins, now with 10 rounds down. It's really interesting to see how that's all going to shake out. But anyways, so the question that I pose for Eli is, can he stay consistent enough for the rest of the year to move on to Las Vegas with the red plate and win the championship? If you guys have any comments about that, leave them down low. We'd love to talk about that next week and just kind of give me your thoughts on what you think about that. So yeah, can Eli stay consistent enough to grab the red plate for the season and win the championship? So that's a question I'm posing there. Now, going back to Daytona, second place was Cooper Webb. Like I was just talking about, Cooper Webb in first in the points, had a super solid night. Yes, he didn't get the win, but he's also won 5 of the races. So that 19-point deficit that he has over Eli is definitely a strong lead, and him getting a podium at second place really helped secure that lead too. It wasn't like he got, fifth or sixth or whatever and really lost a bunch of points. Second is definitely a solid night. Anytime that you're in the championship hunt and you are leading the championship and the points, it's always good to see, that rider up on the podium every single week, whether that's first, second, or third. You're really protecting your points lead at that point when you are consistent on the podium. So it was really good to see Cooper pull out a second place. Yes, he didn't get the win, but he's also had five wins this season out of 10. So, there's only so much that a guy can do. It's not like you expect him to go out and win every single race. Now, Faulkner is an exception for sure. It's been really cool to see him do that and win every single round, other than the West and the East Coast, which, that's kind of always a shakeup, like I've been saying. But as far as the East Coast goes, he's been first place every single round. So besides that, it's very uncommon to see, a guy, especially for 17 rounds, go out and win every single race. So there's only so much that you can expect from Cooper Webb. So having a second place night is a very, very solid performance and really protecting his points lead over Eli Tomac right now. So moving on from there, you had Marvin Musquin in third. And that was really cool to see him, too, on the podium. He rode very well in qualifying, and I felt like if he got off the gate well, he was going to do well, and that's exactly what happened. And he really put up a good, solid fight and a good finish. He was closing in on Cooper Webb as the race was going on, and as the race was coming to an end. So I felt like that was really cool to see that he still had a lot of fire left in him towards the end of the race, and was really closing in on Webb for the second place at the end of the race. So overall, very good performance for both the factory KTM riders, for Webb and for Musquin, with Eli coming out in first. Now, the topic that I want to talk about is Ken Roczen. Now, I said it before earlier in the video that Ken had a spillover in the first 180-degree turn thanks to Chad Reed, and that tangled him up with Dean Wilson and Cole Seeley. Now, he was pinned underneath the bike, so he couldn't move. So after Cole got his bike up, he got on and rode away, but that really put him in basically almost last place right off the get-go. So he charged really hard. Unfortunately, it just was not going to be his night after that first start, so it was disappointing to see that. But unfortunately, it's racing. Things like that happen. So it was a really big bummer for me to see that Ken didn't get on that podium like I thought he would. I felt like if he definitely got off of that gate well and got off of that 180-degree turn and didn't get into an accident like he did, I felt like he had a fantastic shot at winning the race. So unfortunately, he got plagued with some bad luck there in the first 180-degree turn, and that really hurt him as far as the points go. So like I was saying, he was in second coming into this round, and now he's leaving in fourth place. So he really needs to do well from here on out for him to have any shot of getting that red plate back and for him to win the championship. So we'll see what happens. I feel like this past week, just being as bad as it was, gave him a lot of fire to do well at round 11 coming up this Saturday, and we'll see if that rings true. But I don't think that Ken is too happy about that finish, and I think that you're going to see a big difference this week coming up, and I feel like this might be the week that he pulls out a win just because of getting fourth in the past 2 rounds and now just having that really, really bad finish in Daytona. So I feel like this might be the week that you see Ken turn it all around and get that first win of the season. Now we'll see if that happens or not. But again, we'll do the predictions later on in the video of what I feel like for the top 5 for the round 11. So those are your top 3, and also talking about Ken Roczen for the 450s. So last but certainly not least, we have to talk about round 11 this week upcoming in Indiana and the Lucas Oil Stadium. So we're going to jump right into the 250s. Now for your top 5, I'm saying you have Forkner for first. I think you would be stupid not to pick him for first. He's been solid every single week, winning every single East Coast round other than the West and the East Showdown, but that's off the table. That doesn't, as far as I'm concerned, that just doesn't play a factor. So I feel like you're going to see him get first this week and back everything up and him stay consistent like he's been all season long in the East Coast division. Second place, I'm saying you have Sexton, and you're going to see him back that up after a second place finish in Daytona. Third, I'm also saying Cooper. You're going to see Cooper back his third place up just because of him in second place for the championship and the point season right now. I feel like you definitely need to see him up on the podium, so I'm going to put him in for third. I feel very comfortable with that. Fourth, I'm going to put Martin. Martin is definitely a solid rider, and I feel like he definitely deserves to be up there in the top 5, so I'm going to put him in for fourth. And for fifth place, I'm putting Davalos. So definitely those top 5 guys watch for this week in Indianapolis, and it should be a good battle. So moving on from the 250s to the 450s, first place, like I called it earlier in this video, I'm saying Ken Roczen turns it all around. He's had some really, to his standards, not great finishes. He's had 2 fourth places and then just coming off of just a really bad and unfortunate night at Daytona. So I'm saying that those 3 past weeks have really put some fire underneath of him, and he's really wanting to get out there and prove to those guys that he's still a threat for the championship, and he's still a threat for every single week to get up on the podium. So I feel like that's going to really put some fire underneath of his belt, and I feel like he's going to go and turn it all around and really take that win this week. So you're going to see him take the win this week. First 2019 victory for him. You know, it's really crazy to think that he has not gotten a victory yet this season. We're now 10 rounds in, and he has not gotten a victory. So I feel like you're going to see him pull it all out, get that first victory, and kind of put to shame what happened with the 2000s of the second when Cooper Webb took that victory away from him at the very end, weeks ago at that race. So Ken Roczen for first, Cooper Webb for second. Obviously, there's no arguing against Cooper Webb. You just can't. So I'm saying you put him in for second. If Webb has a solid night, he's definitely gonna be on the podium. There's just no doubt about it. And it's hard for me to imagine that he won't have a solid night. So if Ken does not get a good gate start and do as well as I think you're going to see Webb up on first. But for my personal predictions, I'm saying Roczen for first, Webb for second. Now, if something happens with Ken throughout the race and everything like that, you're definitely going to see Webb in first, no doubt. But I'm saying you have Roczen for first, Webb for second. Third, I am half tempted after coming from Daytona to put Eli Tomac in third. But again, he's been very inconsistent. And just, he's been more risk than reward for me as far as putting him in for third place and everything like that. I don't feel as comfortable as I would with Marvin Musquin in third. So I'm going to put Marvin Musquin in for third again and again. You've seen how consistent he's been. He's been up on the podiums multiple times this year. And I don't think that that's going to change this week. So I am saying Marvin Musquin for third. Now, I do feel comfortable putting Eli Tomac in for fourth. I think if he has a decent gate start and everything, he'll be up there. But if something happens where his gate start isn't the best, and maybe he's had a hiccup in the main or something like that, where he falls or something like that, it's just tough because he's been very inconsistent this season. So I'm saying 4th for Eli Tomac. I feel comfortable with him there. Now, again, he could prove me wrong like he did last week and pull out the victory, but it's very unlikely with his inconsistency, especially off the start and off the gates. So I'm saying 4th for him. 5th, again, I'm saying Baggett. Now, again, Baggett's one of those guys where I feel really half tempted to put him in for 3rd. He's had really, really solid nights, and Daytona was, again, a really good performance for him. But with the big names like Ken Roczen, Cooper Webb, Marvin Musquin, and Eli Tomac, I feel as if he can run with those guys, but not really put up solid finishes like that. Yes, he's won a couple of races and stuff this year, but I feel more comfortable with him on a weekly basis, putting him in 5th place. So those are my top 5s for you guys. So again, just running over again, I got Roczen, Webb, Marvin, Eli, and Blake for your top 5. Now, before we close everything out, just want to give you an injury report. Aaron Plessinger, as you guys saw, had a really bad get-off in Daytona, ended up breaking his heel. Wish him the best of luck and best recovery, but you won't see him this week for the upcoming round. So really bummed out to see Aaron, break his heel, because I really enjoy his personality both on and off the bike and how he rides. So really bummed to see Aaron get hurt and really that kind of end the season. So wishing him the best of luck and best recovery, and looking forward to seeing him back out on the Pro Motocross Series when that opens back up. But again, get well, Aaron. I really wish you the best of luck. But other than that, you won't see him out this week. So thank you again for tuning in for another episode, guys. It's been really cool to watch the series grow like it has just these past 2 videos. So we're going to keep it up. Tell your friends about this. Let them know if they're interested in Supercross. Hopefully, again, I gave you guys some good information and some good stuff to talk about. Leave comments down below about anything that I talked, whether it be Chad Reed or your top 5 picks or anything. Leave it down low. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll talk to you guys next week. So have a good and safe rest of your week, guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.